Rex Tillerson's, all these people who never supported Donald Trump when he was running for office, didn't vote for him when he was on the ballot, and then weaseled their way into the administration to advance their own agenda. I call these people out in the book because the American people have a right to know who they voted for and why his agenda is not fully implemented.
We've got Corey Lewandowski joining us today here in our program, Coast to Coast, Border to Border on iHeartRadio. He is the author of Trump's Enemies, How the Deep State is Undermining the Presidency. He joins us today here on the telephone. Now, what do you want readers to take away from your writing of this great book?
Look, what I want people to understand is what's really going on in the government. Those people who were in senior law enforcement positions, who because they didn't like someone's politics, spied on them, and if Donald Trump would have lost the election, we'd never know about it. And that is unacceptable. It's unacceptable if you're a Republican. It's unacceptable if you're a Democrat. And so I want the listeners to know, and the people who read this book, to understand something better. We're the greatest country in the world, and we should be unapologetic about that. But there is justice across the board, and it's blind, and it has to be equal for everybody. And when you're a Clinton supporter, you don't have to pay a price. When you're a Trump supporter, you do. That's what this book is about.
We've got the author of Trump's Enemies, Corey Lewandowski, with us today. He joins us live here in our program. And this book, incredibly well written. Talk to me a little bit about the writing process, working with your co-author, everything of that nature.
Well, Dave Bossie and I wrote a book last year. It's called Let Trump Be Trump. It was a New York Times bestseller. We were very lucky. It was the inside story to his rise to the presidency. Me as the campaign manager, Dave as the deputy campaign manager, for two guys who saw it from start to finish. And so working with Dave has been really a pleasure. Dave knows this subject matter on the deep state very well. We've got chapters in the book about the bureaucrats who stop us from getting information that we're trying to get, and Dave has been leading that effort through an organization that he runs called Citizen United. So I've worked with Dave very closely over the last few years, and we've collaborated on this book and the one previous so that, you know, we spend a lot of time with the president, we know what's going on, and we tell the story in one voice in chronological order so your readers can understand it.
We have got the author of Trump's Enemies, Corey Lewandowski, with us today. You can find the book on Amazon, and Corey currently serves as Vice President of Pence's Political Action Committee. He's also President and CEO of Lewandowski Strategic Advisors, LLC, and this book, absolutely riveting. You've put a lot of great content into this book. Tell me about the research process and some of the different things that you wanted to make sure you included in this book.
Well, the most difficult part of the book, candidly, was I had never conducted an interview before because I'm always, for some reason, the interviewee as opposed to the interviewer. And I happened to be on Air Force One traveling with the president somewhere, and I said, "Sir, Dave and I are writing a book. I'd love to have the opportunity to talk to you about it." And he said, "Hey, come on in the Oval Office tomorrow, and I'll sit down." And it's the first and only book that President Trump has given a formal interview for in the first 2 years of his administration. So, to me, it took a lot of work. I was very nervous, to be honest with you, even though I have spent thousands of hours with the man, asking him questions, him sitting behind the desk, and making sure that the readers would understand what we were talking. And we talk about, the interview was really lengthy, but more importantly, it was very broad. And we talk about what it was like to be the president. What's his greatest accomplishment? What does he still want to achieve? Does he blame Republicans in Congress for the midterm elections? And all of those things are in there. But the one thing that was most striking to me, and it should jump off the pages when you read the interview, and the entire interview is in this book, is when I asked him, do you think Barack Obama knew about Crossfire Hurricane, the FBI's plan to go after members of the Trump campaign for political reasons? And he said, yes, he did, and not only that, if they would have done that to Barack Obama, it would have been called treason, and those people would be in jail for 100 years. And he's absolutely correct. So getting ready for the interview with the president was a lot of work. We put a lot of time into it. We audio recorded it. We have the audio available if anybody wants to listen to it as well.
Wow.
But that, and then the months and months and months of reviewing documents, which were originally, many of them were classified. They become unclassified. And our sources on Capitol Hill and throughout the government who were willing to speak to us on background and on the deepest of background so that we could make sure the information in this book was 100% accurate.
Fantastic. We have got the author of Trump's Enemies, Corey Lewandowski, with us today. He joins us live here on the broadcast. You can pick it up on Amazon as well. What's been some different reviews and feedback you've gotten on the book so far?
Well, the good news is I think the people who understand the subject matter very well, I think of Greg Jarrett, who wrote a great book on the topic, and Dan Bongino and Cheryl Atkins. You know, those people who understand the subject matter have looked at the book and said, not only is it well written, it's factually accurate. And to me, that's very important. So we're very pleased with the level of scrutiny that we've gotten to say that the book is well done. The other part is, it's a very easy read. You know, we write this at a level so everybody can understand it. You don't have to be overly knowledgeable of the subject matter before you pick up the book, and we write it in a way where people can understand the nuances of what takes place, but also from our perspective, we talk about standing with Donald Trump, President Trump, as John McCain's body is taken off the C-130 to Andrews Air Force Base on the day that they move him from Arizona back to Washington, D.C. for the funeral. We talk about being on the plane with the president when Paul Manafort and Michael Cohen plead guilty on the same day, only hours apart for their crimes. So those things are very real stories that brings the reader behind the scenes to see what the president is like, what his team is like, and what the reaction is like to everyday world events, and it's very timely. This book has only been to bed in the last 60 days, so everything is very timely right now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, how... I guess kind of talk to us a little bit about how you and your co-author were able to put this book together. What was did you write a few and then he wrote a few? How did you put this together?
You know, we did it all together, to be honest with you. Dave and I sat down and we collaborated. We came up with ideas. We worked it out. We literally sat down across the table from each other, and our process is to read each other the book verbatim, word for word, you know, a half a dozen or a dozen times. And we do that so that we can understand what the listener is going to hear or what he or she is going to read and make sure it makes sense to us. So Dave and I have a very lengthy process for doing the books. It took a lot of time. It took us about 8.5 or 9 months to write this book and get it out. And originally, we were going to write the rebuttal to Jim Comey's book. But now that Jim Comey has no credibility, we decided to write what the real story is, which is what they're doing at the Justice Department, the FBI, and others, and that's how we focus our attention.
Trump's Enemies, Corey Lewandowski with us today. And so talk to me about your specific writing style. Do you have a specific writing style?
Well, we do. I mean, look, you know, our writing style is very first-person account of what takes place. So as we go out and we travel, we take contemporaneous notes. We write things down. We go back and review them. And Dave and I, because we didn't want to do one chapter he did, one chapter I did, I didn't think it would flow that way. So everything that we do, we travel a lot together, and we write in a manner, I think, that is, again, very easy to understand. I'm a simple guy, right? I'm a simple guy who went on an amazing journey. And in order for us to keep our audience's attention, we want to write it in a first-person account so you can understand what it is and the conversations we're having. And many of the conversations that we have are in that book, verbatim quotes that we have with the president, conversations we have with him and his team and his entire senior staff. It's really a special thing.
It's a heck of a read. It's Trump's Enemies. Corey Lewandowski joins us today here on the telephone, talking a little bit about this incredible book. In the few moments that we've got left with you, my friend, what's next for you guys as authors?
Look, I think if this book does well, and with your audience buying it for Christmas and Hanukkah and the holiday season, I hope it will. I'd love to do one more book, and that book would be on Trump's accomplishments. And, you know, I'd like to see that book come out in a couple of years, right around the time of the convention. My guess is, you know, some squish Republican Jeff Flake, John Kasich, is going to try and challenge Donald Trump for the Republican nomination, which I welcome that opportunity to take those guys on again. And I'd like to write the book right before his re-election effort in 2020 of all the things that he's been able to accomplish with a hostile media environment, some hostile staff inside the White House, you know, the hostile Democrats in Congress. I'd love to write the accomplishments book because what he's been able to achieve in the first 2 years has been unprecedented, and I think we have to tell that story.
We've got the author of Trump's Enemies with us today, Corey Lewandowski. It's a national bestseller. It is a fantastic read. Trump's Enemies: How the Deep State is Undermining the Presidency. Now, how quick? Talk to us about the process of getting this book completed and then getting it out as quick as you did with a lot of the content that's in here. Because I've had authors, other authors on this program, and they talk about the process of, well, I got the book done, and then the editor saw it, and then we did this, and we did that. You've got a lot of good material in here that is very, very fresh.
Well, and what we did, look, we're very fortunate because we use the same publishing house as we did in our first book. They understand us. They know our work ethic. And what we asked them for is we didn't ask them for an extension. We asked them to give us the absolute last day that we could turn the book in to make it go and be out when we wanted it to be out, which was the very beginning of last week. We really were going to launch this book tomorrow, but we sped it up 1 week because we wanted the information to be so fresh. And literally, Dave and I finished writing the book at about 11:30 p.m., the final read, the final edit, the final manuscript completed on the day it was due. So we beat our deadline by 30 minutes, and that deadline was imposed because that's when the printer could turn the book around, because nobody wants to read about things that are 6 or 8 or 10 months old, or maybe they would retrospectively. But because this stuff is so fresh right now, with Jim Comey being on Capitol Hill on Friday, people should understand what role he had in this whole Russia collusion hoax, his relationship with Bob Mueller. They've worked together for 20 years. People should understand that, and once they do, and they read it in our book, they will be prepared for Friday's testimony.
Corey Lewandowski with us today, Trump's Enemies: How the Deep State is Undermining the Presidency. And before we let you go, what are some authors that have influenced you and David to put some of your books together in the past?
Well, look, McCollum is somebody who's written some amazing books, as you know, about the presidency. Some of the things that he has written have just been over the top, and I look at books like The Last Lion, which was the story and the life of Winston Churchill. What they have done have been amazing. A local guy who's done very well in my area is a guy by the name of Howie Carr. He's been a well-published author. Yep. Mark Owen wrote a book called No Easy Day. I love the read of that book. It was something that was very good. Chris Kyle wrote a book on the Navy SEALs called American Sniper and what he went through. And I try, look, those guys are American heroes. Mark Owen, who wrote No Easy Day, Chris Kyle, those individuals. But I try and put myself in a position so that the reader will understand what I lived through. And I'm not equating to what I lived through to what those great Americans lived through and the hell that they had to go through. But once they grab you in books like that, it's amazing what they've been able to do. And so, I look at so many books that people have written, Robert Caro being another guy who just, they have such detail in them, and they're unquestioned about their influence in the book and their research skills. And even Bob Woodward's book that he just came out with, a phenomenal success by all book metric standards. No one questioned his research skills and the audience that he interviewed and the tapes that he had. They might have disagreed with the fact that Rob Porter and Gary Cohn was stealing things off the Resolute desk, and I also disagree with that. But no one's questioning his ethics as an author to write those books, and no one's ever questioned what Dave or I have said in our books because we know them to be factually accurate.
Well, before we let you go, we've got Corey Lewandowski with us today, Trump's Enemies: How the Deep State is Undermining the Presidency. Pick it up on Amazon. I guess before we let you go, since you've had this, you've had great books, you've got this one right now, did you guys make any marketing mistakes, or is there anything you would avoid in the future marketing your books?
Yes, number one, don't try and come out with a book the same time as Michelle Obama. She's a monster, okay? Michelle Obama sold 1.5 million books in 14 days, and then she came out and sold another 500,000 books, 4 days later. So don't do yourself a favor, authors. Listen, fellas, be smart. Don't go against the biggest person on the planet when they're putting their book out, because you can't win. So, big marketing mistake. Don't do that. Michelle Obama, to her credit, an amazing story, sold 2 million books. Now, I think it's a very different audience.
Yes.
But, it's very, very difficult, if not all but impossible, to beat an author like Michelle Obama. So, hopefully, you've got a good team that knows when other books are coming out, and they're alerting you to that. And do yourself a favor if you're an author out there. Find out where the competition is and stay as far away as possible.
That is fantastic. Well, Corey, before we let you go, how do we get a hold of you online, social media, all that?
Look, the best thing to do is if you're looking to get in touch with me, you can go to citizenunited.com, which is where Dave Bossie is the president. Citizenunited.com. It's a great organization. I help those guys out and raise them some money. They have done yeoman's work of bringing transparency to government by suing the government for record requests. It's the best thing to do. You go to citizenunited.com, or you just go to Amazon, buy our books, or Barnes & Noble, or your local bookstore, even better. Whatever you can do, and be happy to get in touch with us any way you can.